It was about 7:30 a.m. when Chesapeake employees Jim Ray, Tyler Trammel, and Jason Rickman were getting ready to work, and they heard a faint sound in the distance. The men raced down the hill to the lake where they saw Eugene Scott, who had fallen through the ice about 20 yards from the shore. Ray called 911 for help, and Trammel went out onto the ice and tried to pull him in, but that didn't work. They tried holding out a stick as well, forming a human chain, but their efforts failed. Then John Streb arrived on the scene. He had heard yelling and headed for the lake from the lodge. The former Eagle Scout had a rope in his truck, and 10 minutes later, Scott was out of the water. In the midst of their rescue efforts, the ice gave way under the four men. They were cold and wet, but the adrenaline kept them going. They put Scott on a sled and pulled him up to the road. They then put him in a car and got him warm until a squad was able to get there. Scott was transported to a hospital where he was treated and released. John Streb's arrival on the scene and his always be prepared mentality, along with the quick and selfless thinking of Jim Ray, Tyler Trammel, and Jason Rickman, saved Eugene Scott that day from tragedy. That is why they are our Red Cross Carroll County community heroes.
Well, it was in the morning, and it was an ordinary day. We always leave at the same time together. I went out the door like usual. The hotel's up on a hill, so you can see the lake from there.
And Jim heard a sound coming off the hill, because where we were staying was up on a hill. And at first I thought it was just a coyote or an owl or something. And Jim was very persistent. He wanted us to listen. And that second time we heard it, it was a distinct help. So that's when we got in our car and went down to the lake to see if we could hear it again.
The first thing that occurred to me was maybe it was a hunter out there. He was calling for help somehow, and I was thinking, oh gosh, how on earth are we going to find him?
It was in the morning. They were all in. We're starting our meetings at 7:30. And so I just finished breakfast and went out to my truck because I had a bunch of material in the truck and was going to drive it around to the meeting room. And I went out to the truck, and early in the morning, things echo and you can really hear a lot from the lodge. And I heard a yelp, and just kind of looked around, and then 4 or 5 more, but in about 10-second intervals. It was very consistent. As I was watching or listening to all this, not knowing exactly where it was coming from, I saw a car drive down the hill from the lodge and stop at the stop sign at the main street.
I don't know, it was such a compelling sound that we decided just to take a look. So, but as far as when we were walking along, listening, it was actually Tyler who sort of realized it was a person before I did. So when he realized, he was already, running down the hill. And so, well, I believed him that something was the matter. So I was right behind him. Of course, I was trying to catch up, and I was in such a hurry to catch up that I ended up falling on my face running down the hill. But
I didn't really think about it. I just kind of ran out onto the ice. And my mother, when I told her the story, she's like, "What are you doing out on the ice?" She was very upset that I ran out there. And I was out there, and I turned around, and I saw Jim on his cell phone calling 911, which was probably the smarter thing to do of the two.
They got there to him probably 45 seconds to a minute before I did. And when I stopped the truck, and we were probably, I could only get maybe 30 yards from where this guy was that was in the water. At that point then, there were 3 men there, and one of them had got a big branch from up in the woods, and they were trying to, get it to him.
When I got down to the shore, I could see the victim, who was kind of in the ice up to his armpits, and Jim. I saw that. I think it was Jim was dialing 911 on his phone, and Tyler was grabbing a tree branch. So the first thing I did was cranked up the heat in the car and left the car running.
We got it stick long enough. It took 2 tries because our perception of how far out he was way off, and then finding a stick 10 yards long that's long enough and heavy enough to pull up a man. So we get out there and we get a stick long enough, but he can't really hold on to it because his hands were frozen, basically. He couldn't move.
I did have a rope in my car. I always carry a rope. I am a Boy Scout and try to always be prepared. But so I grabbed that and ran down there.
And about that time is when the fourth man showed up, and he had some rope in his car. So we were able to make a noose, and which we tossed out to him, and he put around his shoulders so that we could get some leverage and pull him up.
So we finally get him in the car. We all took coats off and covered him up best we could, warm him up a little bit. And it was, I've kind of lost track of time, but I'll bet you another 8 to 10 minutes before the squad came.
Yeah, it was a strange feeling. It's nice to know for sure that you had a worthwhile day. Yeah, no doubt.
Ladies and gentlemen, the 2013 Carroll County Heroes, John Streb, Tyler Trammel, Jim Ray, and Jason Rickman.